The AK-47 has a reputation that precedes itself. It is the assault rifle that has gone down in infamy across the world. And there's nothing that I can say here today that many of you probably don't already know about the AK. But what I want to do here today is basically talk about what the AK does and what it stands for me and why I decided to purchase the AK. Now, I know the Arsenal isn't the pinnacle of AK-47s, but it is in that class. Just like a Benz and a BMW and an Audi are in the same class, the Arsenal is in the upper echelon class of AK-47s, which is why I decided to go with the Arsenal. And quite frankly, I really went with the Arsenal because I really liked the way it looked. The AK is by no means a pretty gun. Quite frankly, one could argue it is a very ugly gun. It's clunky, there are bulges and lines and holes and pieces that don't quite fit together. They're all over the place. And it's just not a very refined weapon. But in that ugliness, there's a level of beauty that comes with the AK, much like the case with the Glock. But with the AK, it's a very menacing, imposing rifle. The M16, M4, or AR-15 variants, those are really pretty looking. Those are really pretty looking rifles. They're intimidating from the standpoint that you know what they're capable of, but just from a look standpoint, they don't really intimidate the way an AK-47 does. But the AK-47 has such an iconic look that the moment you bring it out, people know what it is. And there's no denying that. And quite frankly, I really love what Arsenal did with the AK-47. They, of course, you know, they import them and then completely revamp them, but I like it because what it does is it takes the very, very ugly AK platform and just kind of refined it just a little bit, not too much, and basically came out with this. The finish on this Arsenal is what I think makes it what it is. Now granted, the finish on this thing is very finicky. It'll scratch very quickly if you put it up against something that it probably shouldn't be up against. But it does have this satin smooth look to it that I really, really, really like. Not that kind of coarse look that you get with some other AK variants. So that's really an added measure as to why this particular AK does it for me. When you start talking about ergonomics and comfort and things of that nature in regards to the AK-47 platform, when you compare it to an M4 or M16 or AR-15 carbine, it's pretty blatant that those variants of rifles are going to be a lot more comfortable and more ergonomic than the AK-47. The AK-47 was designed to be comfortable. It wasn't designed to be a plush, beautiful feeling whenever you had it in your hand. It was a very much a get the job done type tool. Not that the M16 or the M4 isn't, but this particular firearm was basically designed to get them out fast and get them in any hands that you could possibly get them in. So with saying that, the AK-47 in and of itself doesn't really lend itself to a very ideal ergonomic system. But in comparison to other AKs on the market, I will say that the Arsenal AK variant is very much the top of the line when it comes to ergonomics. For instance, the pistol grip. The pistol grip on this particular firearm is pretty standard, pretty basic, and was basically designed so that this gun would be compliant with the federal laws in terms of importation. But nonetheless, I do tend to prefer this on my stock AKs, this type of grip. And the reason why is because it's really thin, and it kind of is synonymous to gripping in 1911, so to speak. And what it does is allows me to get a real good purchase on the actual grip so that I feel like I have control of the gun. Now, it's not comfortable, it's hard, it doesn't give at all. It's just there, it does what it needs to do. There are no finger grooves or anything like that, but it works for what it wants to do. After a prolonged shooting period, it may get a little annoying, but nonetheless, it isn't horrible. I don't think about it from the standpoint of, oh, this particular grip gets on my nerves. Now, as far as the stock is concerned, that is kind of left to the masses, simply because with the stock, what you're dealing with is people who are taller, shorter, fatter, skinnier. And depending on the angle of the stock, it could work for some and not work for others. In this particular situation, this particular NATO stock, which is a shorter variant of, which is a shorter stock, works for me. It does what it needs to do. It fits firmly up under my shoulder, and when I'm firing, I can control the firearm very well. So from that standpoint, ergonomically, it does well. And then kind of with this little hump here in the back of the stock, it allows me to get my cheek right up on this. Now, when we're shooting this, I don't typically run my gun like this, like some people do against the magazine. I tend to extend out and hold the heat shield. Now, this particular heat shield, I haven't had any issues with it. I do know that there have been some reports that this particular heat shield will start to bubble up after extended firing. Now, I have fired it quite a bit, but not enough to give a definitive answer as to whether or not this heat shield is any good in terms of holding up to the heat. But from a comfort standpoint, I do like this heat shield, and here's why. What it does here is they have these little rails on the side here, and then along with this hump. So what it naturally does is it fits the indentations on my palm and allows me to get a good grip on there, and I can kind of rest my thumb on here. And I really tend to like that a lot. It does a good job of keeping the heat out. I just honestly wish it was a little bit longer, simply because sometimes I find myself running a little bit longer, and as soon as you make contact with any of this metal after a prolonged shooting period, it's gonna be hot. But if you keep your hand on the heat shield, it does what it needs to do, and it doesn't get hot at all, and you can continue to run this gun the way you want to. So from an ergonomic standpoint, this particular arsenal, I have to give it, I do like it. I don't have any problems with it or any qualms with it. Now this rail eventually will come off, and I'll put a quad rail on here. But for now, for what it needs to do, it's doing a great job, and I have to say I like it a lot. Along with the stock, along with the stock and the actual pistol grip. So from that standpoint, the ergonomic system on this gun, it isn't amazing, it isn't groundbreaking, but it's good. And I don't have any complaints with it whatsoever. This is an SGL-21. So basically what that means is this is an AK-47, so it's chambered in 7.62x39 round. But it is outfitted with a AK-74 muzzle brake, which is the 5.45. Now, I have to say that I've shot other AKs before, and I have to say this is by far one of my favorite muzzle brakes. Now, it does a piss poor job in terms of hiding the flash, but as far as mitigating recoil, this does a great job. And the reason is, but I do really like this muzzle brake because it does its job. It's easier to keep the gun on target, it's easier to shoot, and it really mitigates the recoil. It just does a terrible job with flash suppression. So I really do like the muzzle brake on this particular style, and I'm glad they outfitted the 47 with the 74 muzzle brake. With the Arsenal barrels, they are chrome lined, which aids in the wear of this gun. So if you take care of it, it'll take care of itself. But it is outfitted with a chrome lined barrel, which is great if you're going to shoot corrosive ammo. But then it also sucks in that the muzzle brake is not chrome lined. So if you're going to shoot corrosive ammo, you're really going to have to clean this gun pretty quickly, or you're going to have to contend with a lot of rust issues. But I do like the fact that it is chrome lined. I just really wish they would have chrome lined the muzzle brake. I really don't see why they didn't do that. Now it is outfitted like a traditional Russian AK in that you have your bayonet attachment along with your cleaning rod on the accessory rail there, and of course that comes in handy whenever you need to clean your firearm. And I like the concept of a bayonet. I think it's really cool. I don't have one to attach to it, but I guarantee if I find one for a good price, I will. And I know some of the Wasser AKs come with bayonets, and they're kind of creepy a little bit because they almost look like they've been used before. But that's a whole nother matter. But for the most part, the barrel on the Arsenal is top notch, and it's chrome lined, and that is a good thing from a wear standpoint, and it is a good thing as far as corrosive ammo. So at least at the bare minimum, at the end of the day, if you do shoot a lot of corrosive ammo through it, you won't have to contend with much except for maybe your muzzle brake, which will start to rust on you pretty badly. The Arsenal trigger is outfitted with a mil-spec trigger well and a double stage stock trigger. I think I'm gonna have to get a trigger job on this because quite simply, I don't care for the double stage trigger. I just don't. It's gritty. It's not smooth. Now, granted, I'm pretty sure I need to shoot it out. I did buy this gun new. I'm pretty sure once I start to shoot it out, it'll start to become a little bit smoother. But right now, let me check this for a second. Alright, so right now, that's the trigger. So, the reset, God, I hate it. It just grits. Now, I'm pretty, this gun right now is dry. Let me be fair. This gun is dry. So yeah, it's gonna be a little tough coming out. But I'm just not a fan of this trigger. I'm just not. There goes your uptake. And then your brake. It does brake cleanly, I will say that. The brake is really nice and it's clean, but the reset, horrible. The take up, pretty horrible. And it's really kind of hard to gauge this particular trigger. Now, one of the things I love the most about an AK-47, and this gun here is no exception, is the charging handle. I love charging AK-47s. I just do. To me, the M4 or AR-15 rifles, when you charge charging handle, it's kind of left like, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I get it. But with the AK, it's so dramatic. It's so loud. It's just metal on metal, and you're just moving it, bowling around back and forth. And then it's a very imposing sound, and it's just very fun to do. I could sit all day and just rack an AK. It makes you feel like you're doing something more than you really are. But it is very fun. And that's just kind of one of the little boy things about myself that I like about the AK. I really, really love racking and charging handle on that thing. So